Okay, Hare Krishna. Who should I make first?
Yeah, Prabhu, you can make Prasannatma Balaram Prabhu the host.
Yes, Mataji. I know I'm asking at the last minute. Is there anyone who can share this thing? If it is difficult, then we'll have to leave it.
Okay, so we can just check. Anyone would like to share the screen? Any of the participants? Yeah.
Anyone who is there?
Yeah, Prabhu, you're the host now, Prabhu.
Yeah, I got it. But meanwhile, if somebody can share, it will be wonderful.
Okay, I'll share the screen, Prabhu. You can make me the co-host.
For some reason, I'm not able to. It's not selecting only. I don't know why. My audio is okay, right? You're able to hear me.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, I've started sharing the screen, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Oh, Prabhuji's got logged out. Okay.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhu. We are able to hear you.
Yeah, okay. So now the video is off. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. All right. So Mataji, this sharing thing, anything is happening? Will anybody will be able to do that?
I'll share the screen, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm asking you the last minute.
No problem.
Okay, so the kirtan is done, or we can start with a small kirtan, or we can just, I think it's 11:40.
Yeah, Prabhu. If you want to just start with prayers also, it's fine.
I'll do a short kirtan today. Okay. Hare Krishna. So welcome everybody for the Brahma Samhita. So thank you so much for this small opportunity to do this wonderful seva on this exciting day. So I know all of us, some of the people are celebrating Janmashtami here. Some of the temples have their Janmashtami for the public today. So actually we have today and tomorrow, we can say, the Janmashtami celebration. So it's a 2 days of extended celebration. So wishing everyone a happy Janmashtami. So do a short kirtan. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Mahayagna ki jai. So today we are going to look at Brahma Samhita 5.33. So it is there on the screen. Thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Advaitam achyutam anadem anantarupam Adhyam Purana Purusham Navayavvanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabham Madhurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So devotees, anybody wants to recite this particular verse, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. May I, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Please go ahead, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayavvanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabhamatma Bhaktau Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Advaitamatchutamanadim Adyam Purana Purusham Navayavvanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabhamadurlabhamatma Bhaktau Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. And then the translation. Anybody wants to read the translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I read?
Okay, go ahead, Mataji.
Translation by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of a blooming youth.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So we'll see the word-to-word meaning also, but before that, Mr. Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Supadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So there's a beautiful verse. Advaitam achyutamanadam anantarupam adhyam purana purusham navayavvanam cha vedeshu durlabham madhurlabham atmavakto govindamadi purusham tamanam bhajami. So we just try to see the word-to-word meaning now. This is very important for us, otherwise it becomes very difficult for us to understand, because when we read the translation, especially the translation, the English that is written by His Holiness Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakura, it's very difficult for us to follow. So what is Advaitam? Without a second. Achyutam, without decay or degradation. Then Anadhim, without a beginning. Anantarupam, whose form is endless or who possesses unlimited forms. Adhyam, that means beginning. Purana Purusham, the most ancient person. Navayavvanam, a blooming youth. Cha, also. Vedeshu, through the Vedas. Durlabham, inaccessible. Adurlabham, not difficult to obtain. Atma Bhakta, that means through pure devotion of the soul. Govindam, Govinda. Adi Purusham, the original person. Tam, him. Aham, I. Bhajami, worship. So I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. So that's the verse that we will try to see the meaning for today. So I know it's already 20 minutes into the thing, but we'll try to end by 12:30 itself. Okay, so the purport I'll read and then we'll try to understand. But just as a quick this thing, so we know we are looking at Brahma Samhita. This is the recitation by Lord Brahma, who is the start of our parampara. And so that way, this particular verse becomes very important for all of us. All the verses of Brahma Samhita become very important for us. And then one more reason why it is very important is because this was actually given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we know how in South India, when he was making the tour, then in the Adi Keshava temple, somewhere in Kerala, so there he found this particular scripture. That is one chapter, that is the 5th chapter he found, and then which has 100 verses. And then in that we actually recite a part of it. So somewhere from the 5th to 56 or 54 or something like that. So that many verses we actually recite. So now we are actually reciting the verses which we in ISKCON are generally used to chanting or hearing. Now, like I think the last time when we were talking, we just spoke about how we need to understand the Lord through the person who's near the Lord, and that is Lord Brahma. So Brahma is actually seeing the Lord and all his pastimes, and then he's describing. He becomes so happy in ecstasy, then he is breaking out into these verses. And that's what we are looking at now. Now, we also said that the Lord is supreme, and then he has all the opulences are in full. There is nobody who is equal to him. There is nobody who is greater than him. Asama Urdava. So you take any aspect of the Lord, then that particular aspect or attribute is in full for him, or the opulence, like beauty, strength, wisdom, renunciation, then fame, and then wealth, strength, all of that we saw. So now, along with that, we also are seeing some of the qualities of the Lord. Then we are also seeing some other aspects or which describe the beauty of the Lord or describes the body of the Lord, the personality of the Lord. So instead of saying the body features, I'll say that which describes the supreme personality of Godhead. So now we know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a person. So, and he is not a Nirakar kind of entity that is existing. No, that is not what is as per the Shastras. That is not what Brahmaji is saying. So Brahmaji is very clearly saying that the Lord has a form. Now, what is this form? Because when the moment we say Lord has a form, people take, they are a little worried or perplexed about it. Why? Because they think a form like me, a form that grows old, a form that has a limitation. Because I have a form, I'm limited. Now, I'm sitting here, but I have a form. So now I cannot be at another place simultaneously because the form is limiting me. So this concept of being everywhere evolved, and then the concept of Brahman evolved, so that you can be everywhere. Because the Lord says, I am everywhere, and then everything is from me and I am everywhere. So this concept of Nirakar Brahman, acceptance became very easy for people to comprehend with the limited understanding or the limited intelligence or the limited senses that we have. With that, it was very easy to accept that. But however, in Vaishnavism, there is a step forward from there, because if we do that, then we are actually denying Lord something that we have. Like we have a form, and then we are trying to say the Lord doesn't have a form. So we are trying to say that I have something, some attribute in me, which is a form, which the Lord doesn't have. So actually there is a gap that the definition of asana urdhava is like not fulfilling then, right? Because I have a form, the Lord doesn't have a form. So it means that there is something less in the Lord then, which cannot be true. So then what is understanding? So for that, then we come to these texts. We see the texts of Vaishnavism, especially this particular text like Brahma Samhita, and of course all the purports and other things, the explanations that are given by the Acharya. So from that we can understand what is the type of form that we are referring to. So that becomes very important for us. Then only we will be able to accept the supremacy of the Lord, accept the Asama Urdhava aspect of the Lord, and then accept that he is formless and also he has a form. So, and then we again rely on the scriptures to find out which is first, whether the formless personality was the Adi or the form was the Adi, and from there the other things evolved. So for that again we look at the scriptures and then we realize. So now all these doubts keep coming across for us at one point or the other. We always had these doubts, and this particular verse especially is actually going to clear away most of those doubts. We'll try to see how it is happening. So now I'll just read the purport, and then we'll try to understand each of this. So now we saw so many words here. Advaita, then we'll try to understand what is Advaita and how the Lord is Advaitam. Then what is Achyuta, the meaning of Achyuta and how the Lord, it is applicable to the Lord. And what is Anadim, what is Anantarupam, what is Adhyam, what is Purana Purusham, and what is Navayavvanam. And then we will also try to see what is the Vedas trying to say, how the Vedas are Durlabham. And then how, even though it is Durlabham, see, we have our senses, which is Durlabham. We have the Vedas, which we are saying is Durlabham. And yet, then it becomes a Durlabha, or it becomes easy for us to get. What is that quality that I have to develop so that that becomes possible? So this is how this verse of Brahma Samhita, Brahmaji is taking us or leading us towards the fact of Atma Bhakta. And then he concludes by saying, Govindamadi Purusham, such a personality I would like to worship. So this is the sum and essence of what we will see for today. Okay, now in the purport, the translation, Advaitam means indivisible truth, who is knowledge absolute. So now, and then Brahman, the infinite, emanates from him as his effulgence, and God immanent or Paramatma as his constituent. But nevertheless, he remains one and indivisible. So now, Advaitam means indivisible. So Advaita, not two, one. Dvaita means two. Dvaita, that means not two. That means one. So that's the concept of the universality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The wholesome of the universal, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How he is wholesome, the wholesomeness, as well as the Purnam, like he's being indivisible. You cannot, divide or bifurcate and then say one part is gone, so only half. Like I have an apple with me, and then the apple is divisible because we can cut it. Now, if I cut the apple, what happens? The one, and then somebody I give it off to, let us say. So that one half is still remaining with me. So one apple became half an apple. So that is not wholesome. That is not indivisible. So now for the Lord, it is not like that. Of course, this is an example I'm taking. So when the Lord expands, he says he undergoes multiple expansions, we have seen. Now, multiple expansions is almost like bifurcating oneself and then becoming two. So like one becomes two, two becomes four, and four becomes 8, and 8 becomes 16, so on and so forth. This is the division that we are aware of. Now the Lord is indivisible, but then now that means what? Advaita, he cannot be divided. But still we know that he has expanded himself into so many forms. Now for this, how do I reconcile this very first word, Advaita? That means what they are saying is that he remains one even when he divides himself. So that it is like saying, like let us say the Lord divided himself into an expansion or an avatar. But then the Lord did not become less. The personality of the Lord, that is the form of the Lord, that is Lord Krishna, is such that from Krishna, let us say we know that the first expansion was Balaram. So now we know that he came, but then the Lord did not become less because one part of it went off into Balaram. No, that's not how it is. The Lord still is full, Krishna, 100%. So even though he expands, still he is the whole. He is wholesome. He is not unwholesome. So that is why the word indivisible truth is, it can be understood. So that's what it says here. The aspect of Brahman, that is the effulgence of the Lord, is coming from the Lord himself. And then infinite effulgence is there. And then infinite emanations, that means avatars or expansions are happening. So many Paramatmas, so many, how many living entities are there in the entire creation, material creation? Akhila Koti Brahmanda. It's like, our head will start reeling and spinning when we try to think of the numbers. And how many living entities are there? Trillions and trillions and trillions of living entities are there. For each of these living entities, the Paramatma, as Paramatma, the Lord as Paramatma has expanded himself, and then he is sitting there in that particular body along with the soul. And then he is actually being an observer, a seer. He is seeing the activities. So like with that example of two birds, one bird is watching, the other bird is doing the action. So that example we can relate. So like that, as Paramatma he expands, then as Vishnu Tattvas, that is all the incarnations he has expanded. Even though so many divisions have happened, still he is wholesome, still he is Krishna. Now, how do we understand that? Anybody can give a quick example in the material world, what you can think of to explain this seeming paradox? There is a simple example generally. You would have heard of it. That's why I'm asking. Anybody has an example that comes to your mind? Okay.
Lighting of candle.
Hare Krishna, somebody is saying something?
Lightning of candle.
Exactly, Mataji. Thank you so much. That was what I was looking at. So thank you so much for that. So this we can understand by, you have a candle that is lit and it is glowing. It has its full glow, right? Whatever is the illumination that is having. Now let us say we get one more candle and then we light that candle, the unlit candle, with this lit candle and take it away. Now there is this brightness of the second candle is also the same, but then the brightness of the first candle has not diminished. It is still glowing with the same brightness. Now like this, 10 candles, 100 candles, whatever you try to light from the original candle, still the glow or the illumination is the same. So in this way, Krishna also, when he expands, then he is not becoming less. That example of apple, the unwholesomeness is not applicable for Krishna. but the example of candle is more suitable for Krishna. So even though so many candles are being lit from that one candle fire, still the glow is same, like that Krishna is the same. So this is one aspect of the Lord. So now, then what it means, the next word, it says, and that is why they are saying that nevertheless he remains one and indivisible. That means even though we are dividing, he is becoming full. So each time something is being taken away from Krishna, it's still becoming full. So that's the aspect. And then the next thing is Achyuta. Achyuta means that though myriads of avatars emanate from him as subjective portions. So subjective portions means what? That means expansions of the Lord. And millions of jivas as separated spiritual particles. Now we know we are all expansions of the Lord. So the jivas by themselves are expansions of the Lord. And then same amount of expansions as Paramatma also the Lord is doing. So look at the millions and billions and trillions of expansions that are happening from the Lord. Even though they are separated spiritual particles, but still we are all expansions. The avatars are expansions. Still he remains intact as an undivided whole of fullest perfection. So this is the understanding for the quality or the aspect or the attribute of the Lord, of the personality of the Lord, of the body of Sri Krishna, how it is non-different from us. Now, let us say for some reason I can expand. So like say if something goes away, a part of my body goes away, then I'll become less. So if I'm weighing 70 kgs, I'll be 69 if something is taken away. The Lord is not like that. That's all. So simple. So then the next aspect of the Lord is that he, okay, I'll just try to read this. He remains intact as the undivided whole of fullest perfection, and he is perfect in all respects. Though he indulges in exhibiting the pastimes of birth, etc., still he is without a beginning. What is the word for without a beginning? Can you tell me what is the word that we saw here for without a beginning?
Anadi.
I'm not able to hear.
Anadi.
Anadim. Yes, Anadi Kala, like Nadim. So he is without a beginning. But see, the interesting paradox is that today, on the eve of Janmashtami, we are talking about the Lord, the quality of the Lord, and then we are saying he's Anadim. But then we will go out now and then celebrate Krishna Janmashtami, which means that birth of the Lord. So now there is birth of the Lord that is being celebrated, and then in the class we are saying that the Lord is Anadim. So is there a paradox? No, because outside, where people are not aware, they'll say, oh, your Lord Krishna, you're saying, when he started off, he was born 5,000 years back. We say, yes. So he was born, that means he has a starting point. We say, no, he doesn't have a start because he existed before and he will continue to exist after he disappeared also. But then he just made an appearance at a particular time in this material world, and then he stayed for some time, and then he disappeared from there. Then so it's not like he was born at that point. So that's not our understanding. And our acharyas have explained this so well, saying that they give this example of the sun. The sun, before the sunrise every day in the morning, that means the sun is not there. It is rising, means that means it is coming to being at that point. No, an intelligent person knows that the sun is there. It's just that it is not visible to my eyes. I'm not able to see the sun, but then the sun is existing. And then daybreak or sunrise happens. That means the sun is coming on the horizon, and then it is continuing to remain. And then by evening, then again it disappears. Now the appearance and disappearance of the sun can be compared to the appearance and disappearance of the Lord for us to understand and comprehend. Even though we realize it is night 12 o'clock, but we realize that the sun has not gone away. In the sense, it is not non-existent. It is still existing. It is just that I am not able to see. In the same way, Krishna, when he is appearing, then we are able to perceive. Whoever was there was able to see the Lord with the material eyes that we have. But then later on, when he disappeared, then they were not able to see. But that doesn't mean that he is finished or he is dead or he was born and then he died. No, that's not the understanding that we have. So even though we celebrate Krishna Janmashtami, but then we know that he is Anadim. So both these statements are acceptable. We accept both the same enthusiasm. We even celebrate Krishna Janmashtami enthusiastically, even after seeing and hearing that he is Anadim. So that's because that's part of the Leela. And now why he does Leela, then we know. So that's another topic, so I'll not go into that. So like this, though he indulges in exhibiting the pastimes of birth and etc., still he is without a beginning. So all these paradoxes you see, he is Advaitam, that means indivisible, but he has divided himself into many parts. And how to reconcile that, we saw with that example of candle, where the wholesomeness is still retained by Krishna. And then we saw the next one, Achyuta, which means that he is not fallen, but then he expands himself as jivas, which are actually fallen entities, right? Or it decays, or I mean, like that, or the expansions that are coming from him, especially the external expansions of the Lord or the external energy potencies of the Lord are all subject to decay. But then he himself is without decay. So that's the second one. Then we saw Adhyam, which means he is beginningless, but then he has a beginning, the Janmashtami, all of that we know. And then one more interesting aspect is he is Purana Purusham. He is the original person. So whoever you see in the world, 100 years, 102 years, you see somebody who's 70 years old, there's a certain attributes that they have. They're old, they cannot walk, they'll have difficulty in walking, all of that. And then he's an old person. So in the moment I say somebody has lived for 120 years, what comes to our mind? A very old person with the skin and all shagging. Probably the eyesight is weak, hearing maybe is not so great, digestion is not so great. So there are some problems, some pain is there, so on and so forth. Now, if say somebody is like, Purana Purusha, very old personality, that means we will think the Lord must be very old. Sometimes, they depict God as a very elderly old person, because they also say Lord is wise, no? Wise old man. So they depict Lord as somebody with beard, long beard, old person, and then, trying to walk with a stick and all that. So no, Krishna is not like that. He is, even though he is Purana Purusham, he is Navayavanam. He is always like 16. So after 16, then he doesn't grow anymore. He doesn't grow old anymore. So this is another paradox that is being explained here. Though he indulges in though without origin, yet he is with an origin in his pastimes of appearance, and although eternal in essence, he is still a person in the full bloom of youth. So there are two aspects of the Lord. One is he is, even though he is like there is this a start is there for him and end is there for him, only in his pastimes. That's all. Appearance and disappearance, but otherwise he doesn't have any start or end. And then he is a person who's in full bloom of youth, always Nava Yavvanam. That's all. He doesn't get old. So why are we discussing all this? So here it is said, the sum and substance of it is that though he possesses, he means the Lord, he possesses diverse and apparently mutually contradictory qualities, still they are in universal, harmonious concordance by the dint of his unthinkable potency. So that is the potency of the Lord. And what is this potency? It is unthinkable. See, who's thinking now? We as individuals, we are all material body covered people. And then we have material faculties like mind, intelligence, everything which is material. So it is unthinkable for us. It is inconceivable. What is that word that we use for inconceivable in our discussions? Can anybody say that word?
Chit.
Yes, Mataji, you can say.
Adhokshaja.
No, not Adhokshaja.
Achintya Prabhu.
Achintya, yes, Achintya. Adhokshaja is we are not able to perceive or understand with our senses. Okay, Adhokshaja, but then here I was looking for the word Achintya, beyond our imagination, beyond our chinta. We can't even conceive it. We cannot even figure out or try to get an understanding or try to even think about the Lord. So that is the potency of the Lord. He is beyond that. That is why we call him Achintya. And then there is also this philosophy that we accept, which is Achintya Veda Aveda. So which means that how simultaneously he is one, yet different. Veda, there is difference and Abheda. Our entire philosophy is that only. Veda and Abheda. So there is Aveda, there is also Veda. And both Veda and Aveda exist simultaneously. And understanding of that is Achintya. So the philosophy of the unthinkable oneness yet difference is the philosophy that we are told, or it is being explained to us, which we will have to understand. Now, when I'm talking about the philosophy, the understanding, where do we look for all of this? We look for it in the Vedas. Now, what is this third statement that is being made here? It says, Vedeshu durlabam adhurlabam atmavakto. So, Vedas here, I'll just try to read that particular aspect of See, Brahma actually says that the transcendental absolute is beyond the reach of the Vedas. Correct? Why is that so? Because see, there is a paradox here also. Now we are saying that he is beyond the reach of the Vedas, or through the Vedas. But we have been told in Bhagavad Gita, it's only through the Vedas you can know the Lord. Veda is Mata because she is pointing to the Lord. So yes, pointing to the Lord, but not able to describe the Lord fully, because like what was that verse which says, Vedaisya sarvai rahameva vedyo, Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. That means like through the Vedas, I am to be known. Yes, the Lord has to be known through the Vedas. So we need the Vedas. We are not trying to belittle the Vedas here. But then Brahma is saying that the Supreme Lord actually is even beyond the reach of the Vedas. That means Vedas are just words that are describing. So but then we know that the Lord is beyond that. And that is the aspect that we need to understand. So in one verse you have where it says that the Vedas tell us who the Lord is, which is correct. And then Brahmaji is now saying that Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham, where it says that it is difficult to, even the Vedas, through the Vedas, it is difficult to access the Lord, to go to the Lord, to reach Him. Then what do we do? Is it not confusing sometimes? No. For a Vaishnava who's in this line, who's under the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is not at all difficult for us to understand that, because we know that what is adurlabha what is durlabha becomes adurlabham. How? By Atma Bhakta. So when the bhakti element is coming into our life, then what was durlabha becomes adurlabha. That means what was difficult to get becomes easy to get. So what was difficult to understand becomes easy to understand. This is something that all of us can comprehend. So sometimes, we never understood anything when we were trying to read things on our own and all that, like the Bhagavad Gita or any of that. And then we listened, we heard, and then we did what is that? Sadhu Sangha. Then we did Bhajana Kriya. We did some activity. That Bhajana Kriya is very, very important in the presence of devotees, Sadhu Sangha, or in the presence of senior devotees. When we do that, then what happens is Anartha Nivrittis happen. And then when all this whole process kicks in, and then there is some amount of clarity that suddenly comes to us. Now, what is the extent of clarity that we get? That is the extent to which we have done the devotional service, to the extent that we have faith, to the extent that our Anartha Nivritti has happened, to that extent that my effort I have put in the right way, because ours is all Mishra Bhakti, So, like we do some Bhakti with some ulterior motive. That component which was done without any ulterior motive gave us that particular benefit, which helps us to understand a little bit more. So that is why they say, how do I understand I'm making progress? One of them is that you begin to understand a little bit about the Lord, or understand the creation that we see around us, or we are coming into terms with the creation. We are coming to terms with all the ups and downs that we see. What is the seemingly fair and unfair things that happen in the world? We are able to see it in a little more better way. So that is why they say, like, what is that? Samadarshi we are becoming. We are not biased, we are not judgmental. We try to accept people as they are, and so on and so forth. So which was not the case earlier before
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Can you
Krishna.
hear Prabhuji?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think there was a call that came in. So anyway, I disconnected. Okay. So that understanding is what is, I mean, the reason for that is not my effort. It is not what I have done. It is not the sadhu sangha that I did. It is not because of that, but it is the furthering of that one, which is by way of mercy. Like I did something, and then the acknowledgement by the Lord, by the Lord, and then the mercy that is beginning to flow from the Lord through the parampara and then reaching me. That is making me understand these things. That is why it says, even though we cannot access the Lord through the Vedas, still he becomes accessible by devotional service. So if you have to put it very simply, I mean, see, the conclusions are the same. We already know the conclusion. Even before the start of the class, we will realize what is this conclusion. Conclusion is all about devotional service, especially in ISKCON. Whenever there is any class, it has to come to devotional service. Now, coming to devotional service, sometimes, we might feel, especially in the initial stages, we might feel, oh, what is this? Every time they come and then come there and then to that point of devotional service and then they stop there. And then they are always saying we have to do devotional service. Devotional service has to be ahetuki, it has to be apratihata, it has to be continuous, it has to be without any motive, and so on and so forth. So I wish they could speak of something else other than this. But we have to understand and realize this. There is nothing beyond this. Even if we have to understand the Vedas, or if we have to get some knowledge, or if we have to have some realization, or if we have to use the knowledge practically, we need to do have bhakti, or we need to do some devotional service. By doing that, then we will be able to get this. And that is what in this particular purport, it is being told as, there is a word here. What was that? The potency, that is the chit dharma. The chit dharma of the Lord is revealed to us only, or we begin to understand the indivisibility of the Lord. We begin to understand how everything of the Lord, like Angani Yastra Sakalendriya Vritti Mantri. So many, the limbs can do the function of seeing, hearing, smelling. We'll wonder, how is that possible? But then the Lord is wholesome, and then the personality of the Lord is wholesome. So there is no difference between one faculty to another, because everything is spiritual. That is why we say, the whole body, there is oneness. There is no material body for Krishna. So for Krishna, it is a spiritual body that he has, but then we are able to see him. That's all. And then likewise, like for us, we have two. We have the soul, and then which is inside, which is having the same potency as the Lord, but then we are covered by a material body. Whereas when he appeared here, it was the whole thing. It was like the whole soul having that form, and then what we see, the 16-year-old. So like that. So that itself is spiritual. The spirit spark we have, but then for the Lord, it is not a spark. It is a whole body of the Lord itself. So like this. So when that kind of an attribute the Lord has, then it can perform. It is beyond the limitation of material understanding. It is beyond the limitation of, I need to have an ear to hear. So eardrum, everything is there. It is made from the material body. But then that there is a certain, only when we hear through the ears, then the connection will happen. But for the Lord, it is not like that, because he is not bound by the material rules. So all these things don't apply. So he can see with his eye, he can eat with his eyes, he can see with his eyes, he can smell through his eyes, and all those vice versa. So like that, the body of the Lord we can understand which is called as a chit dharma, or chit means like knowledge. Chit is knowledge. Dharma means that is the aspect of the Lord. Like, what is the aspect of the Lord? Like mirchi, what is the dharma of mirchi? Being hot, that is chili. The dharma of sugar is to be sweet. Like that, the dharma of the Lord is the chit potency. That means he is full of knowledge. He is full of that chit potency is there for him. So that is the chit dharma. So we can understand that or only through devotional service and nothing else. Otherwise, it will look like this is some fantasy, or we are trying to bring up something or concoct something, so on and so forth. But when we club our hearing Shravanam as a devotional service to the Lord, and then do some devotional activity, then the realization happens, and then because of the mercy, then we are able to accept the fact, and then it becomes so obvious, which the other person is not able to see. And this is the magic that every devotee experiences. It is not like it's only some devotee. Everybody who is a devotee, a practicing devotee, who's doing devotional service, who's coming into this bhakti mark, being connected to the parampara, having a guru, and then aligning themselves in the way that it has to be aligned, they will definitely become a recipient of this mercy. And because of the recipient of the mercy, the Lord will begin to show himself, his nature, his form, to the extent to which we surrender. Ye yatamam prapaddante tam stataiva bhajamiham. So all these shlokas are repeated, but then we can now understand how all these contradictions are also, it can be analyzed by us with the right amount of bhakti that we do, and then thereby then it becomes easy for us to understand. I'm not saying easy, that's a very quick word to use. It, by the mercy of the Lord, then we are made to understand these things, and that is what is coming out here. See, I'll just try to read this. The sum and substance of it is that though he possesses diverse and apparently mutually contradictory qualities, still they are in the universal harmonious concordance by dint of his unthinkable potency. This is what is meant by Chid Dharma. So the unthinkable potency is the Chid Dharma, as distinguished from material nature or material things. Then his graceful threefold bending form with flute in hand possesses eternal blooming youth and is above all unwholesomeness that is to be found in the limited space and time. The unwholesomeness that is found in the limited space and time is what? The example of an apple. Cutting the apple, it becomes half. It is not wholesome. It is not purnam. That is why we have the shloka, na? Om purnamada purnamudam purnamuduchyate purnasya purnamadhaya purnameva shishyate. So that means what? The Lord is purnam, and then his creation is also purnam. But then, even though it is purnam, there is still unwholesomeness in the material creation. That is, we saw in the example of the apple and the cut apple, where it becomes half. But for the Lord, it is not like that. The personality of the Lord, which is in the threefold bending form, the Tribhangi form of the Lord with the flute, is with eternal blooming youth, realm. Then there is also no past and future, but only the unalloyed and immutable present. So this is another aspect. We saw about time and also about space. So the aspect of space separating is not there in the spiritual world. Then the aspect of time is also not there. So Prabhupada was actually giving a lecture in somewhere in Japan, I think, where he was talking about all this. And then he was saying this aspect of space is not there in the spiritual world. Aspect of time is not there. And he was saying there is no past and there is no future in the spiritual world. Everything is present. Everything is continuous present, So there's one devotee, Mataji, she raised her hand and she said, but Prabhupada, I am not able to understand. He said, exactly. I never told you to understand. Just hear, just listen. That means even if we don't understand, just hear, just listen. That means listen with subordination, or listen with the aspect that the Lord is the Supreme Personality. He is inconceivable, and he can, the aspect of how his creation, which is a spiritual world, doesn't have the influence of time. At this point, we cannot comprehend, but then that is what it is. And then he was explaining that in that way. And then he said, I'm telling you to hear, not to understand, which means that you will not understand. All of us will not understand, but then just hear. The Lord will reveal, and then we'll begin to understand. So that's the whole aspect of inconceivability of the Lord. And then it says, and then we also saw how the immutable present time, everything is present there in the material world, in the spiritual world. In the transcendental sphere, there is no distinction between the object and its qualities. That's another aspect which we can understand. The difference between object and its qualities, and no such identity as is found in the limited mundane region. How do we understand this? There is no distinction between the object and its qualities. What is the quality and its object? I'll give a simple example. Some of you might be aware of it now, or you would have heard of it before. Like, take water. So now the object water is there, and then there is this quality of water, which is to quench the thirst of an individual. Now, if you are feeling thirsty, we will have to take the water and drink it. Then only, because the quality of water is in the object. But then in the spiritual world, like Krishna has that attribute, right? Where the name of Krishna or the name water in this example is the same attribute or quality it has as the object water. Object water quenches the taste. Name water also will quench the taste. So then it becomes, then we can say there is no difference between the object and the name, or the name used to identify the object, like that. Like Krishna, when we say Krishna, we know that it's a name that identifies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is inconceivable, who is Achyutamanade, Manantam, Purana Purusham, all of that. But then the Lord has put further potency into that name. And then he says, if you say the name, then the name is equal to me. That means like it is like saying water, water, and then seeing that our thirst is being quenched. How wonderful it will be. I just say water, water, and then my thirst is getting quenched. Wonderful, no? So that means then the word that is used to denote the water and the object water are having the same potency, like that Krishna name and Krishna form has the same potency. So Krishna has not limited all his potency to just his form. He has extended it to the form, I mean, the potency that is there in the form, he has extended it into his name. And then his pastimes also, that is the Leelas. When you hear the Leelas also, it is enough. So like that, he is so merciful. And then we say the name, like every day we chant, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At this point, we are chanting with a lot of impurities, so we are not able to relish it. But then the Shastras say, the Acharyas say that there is no difference between the word Krishna or the name that is denoting Krishna and the object Krishna, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are the same. So we will relish in the same way with the name itself. So like that, there are many little difficult to understand things. But because of the mercy of Prabhupada, because of the mercy of the Parampara, we have been given so many examples. Like we saw the example or the analogy of the lamp, the candle being lit. Now we saw the analogy of what's that? The water, and then the property of the water, and then how the quality of the water is different from the word water or the sound water, whereas for Krishna, that's not the same. So like this, we are seeing so many paradoxes which are all getting harmonized. That was a word that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj used, where he said universal harmonies, which are, there is an universal harmonious concordance because of the unthinkable potency of the Lord, which is the Chit Dharma, which comes to us because of our doing Bhakti Seve, or our being aligned to the Lord in the mode of Bhakti. So then that happens. So now just read a little bit more. I know it's 12:30, another 5 minutes we'll try to wind up. Hence, those qualities that seem to be apparently contradictory in the light of mundane conception, limited by time and space, exist in agreeable and dainty accordance in the spiritual realm. How can the jiva realize such unprecedented existence? The limited intelligence function of the jiva is always contaminated by the influence of time and space, and is therefore not in a position to shake off its limitedness. So even if we don't understand, never mind, just listen. That is what Prabhupada said. So if the potency of cognitive function does not extend to the realization of transcendental, what else can? So when this is not happening, then what can? This is how, like, this is like what is going on in the mind, like that. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is trying to analyze or give a reply. So in reply, Brahma says that the transcendental absolute is beyond the reach of Vedas. The Vedas originate in sound, and sound originates in the mundane ether. So in one way, the sound of Vedas is mundane ether. So it has a limitation. I'll not say it is material, it has a limitation. So the Vedas cannot present before us a direct view of the transcendental world or Goloka. It is only when the Vedas are imbued with the Chit potency that they are enabled to deal with the transcendental. That is why they say, what is that? The Hridaya, in the Hridaya, the knowledge is put into the heart. It is not in the brain. We see in the morning when we sing this thing. Guru Gaurashtaka, so that time when we say, Hridaya Prakashito, Divya Gyan Hridaya Prakashito. So the Divya Gyan is not coming into our brain and then we are understanding. No, that's a failed process. The actual process is Hridaya Prakashito. So in the heart, it gets manifested and then it appears there. And thereby we are able to understand and comprehend, even though it is not comprehensible. So this is another contradiction by itself. Generally in the material world, Divya Gyan. Gyan means it is connected to the brain. But here, Divya Gyan is Hridaya Prakashito. It gets manifested in the heart of the devotee. Heart of the devotee means then the devotee who is doing devotional service, which is Ahituki and Apratihata. So in this way, we can see how everything is so wonderfully connecting. So the Vedas cannot present before us a direct view of the transcendental world, which is Goloka. It is only when the Vedas are imbued with the Chit potency that they are enabled to deal with the transcendental. So that imbued with Chit potency means the mercy of the Lord is flowing. Then we are enabled to deal with the transcendental. But Goloka reveals itself to every Jiva soul when he is under the influence of spiritual cognitive potency joined to the essence of ecstatic energy. The ecstatic function of devotion is boundless and is surcharged with unalloyed transcendental knowledge. That knowledge reveals Goloka Tattva, the principle of the highest transcendental, in unison with devotion, without asserting itself separately, but as a subsidiary to unalloyed devotion. So what is the conclusion here? The last line is very interesting. It says that the knowledge of Goloka Tattva or the Tattva is with devotion only. It is together with devotion. It doesn't assert itself separately. That means Jnana is separate, then Bhakti is separate. We all think like that, right? But this Jnana is actually a subsidiary of unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed devotion means unalloyed devotion. That is a pure devotion. So it is a subsidiary. That means what? It is a small part of, so the knowledge becomes a part of devotion. That's all. It is not like the knowledge is separate and then devotion is separate. That is what we think beginning stages. But now here he is saying that when unalloyed devotion's subsidiary is Jnana. And that too what Jnana? Not mundane Jnana. The highest Jnana, which is the Goloka Tattva. Even that is actually subsidiary to devotional service. That means unalloyed devotional service is the topmost. And the subsidiary of that is Goloka Tattva, which is the highest knowledge. That Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam also, no, the highest knowledge. Then what to speak of all the other knowledges? It doesn't even exist in the devotional service, or it is not connected in any way. So like this, we can understand how the Lord, with so many contradictions also, we can accept him as the Supreme Lord. And then we can, with the same enthusiasm, we can embrace the function of Janmashtami. I'm just speaking on the eve of that. And then we can also say that he is Anadim and Adi Purusham and all of that. So both the contradictions we accept wholeheartedly because we know the Lord and because we are actually recipient to the mercy. So we are okay to, and then we are able to reconcile the two. So that's the sum and essence of what Lord Brahma is trying to say in this verse. I know I just put it across very crudely, but then we saw this. So I'll stop here with the conclusion that the attributes of the Lord are not easy to understand, but then once we have the mercy of the Lord through the parampara, then we will be able to understand those or begin to understand those things. So that's the conclusion. And then also the conclusion that how devotional service is the highest and the Jnana is actually a subsidiary of devotional service. So these are the two takeaways. And also that various attributes of the Lord is another takeaway, which we already know. So I'll stop here. If there are any comments or questions, please go ahead. Otherwise, we can close for today. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the very wonderful session. Very wonderful, very wonderfully, beautifully explained every word of the verse. Thank you very much, Prabhu. In case devotees have any questions, you may raise your hands. We can take one or two questions. Okay, so there are no questions. All right, so thank you so much, Prabhu. So wishing all the devotees a very, very happy Shri Krishna Janmashtami and Tomorrow is also a very important day, and day after tomorrow is a more important day, because we are observing Shri Krishna Janmashtami, because we have Srila Prabhupada in our lives. So tomorrow and day after tomorrow are the most important days in a devotee's life. So let's make the most of the next 2 days by always trying to remember Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. By the mercy of Prabhupada, it's possible. So we tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we are giving the opportunity to everybody to contemplate, focus, bring back our consciousness to remembering Krishna, doing physical seva in any of the temples that we're connected in. Remember Krishna 24 hours, fasting from even water, and trying to feast on Harinam, remembering Krishna, reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. In this way, let's all try to remember Krishna. And day after tomorrow is even more important. It's Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. So we can think of all the sacrifices that Prabhupada made. At the age of 70, he took the Jaladuta, he went abroad, he established this ISKCON for us, that we're able to celebrate Shri Krishna Janmashtami. In this way, we can express our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada by studying Srila Prabhupada's books, by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, by following the 4 regulative principles, by chanting at least 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mantra attentively during Brahma Muhurta. In all of the ways, we can take our vows, how we will please Srila Prabhupada, because by pleasing Prabhupada, we'll please Krishna. Very, very clear. Prabhupada says, I will take you back home, back to Godhead. You just chant 16 rounds attentively and follow the 4 regulative principles. So minimum instructions, we can try to reinforce our vows and plead to Prabhupada that may we be interested in Krishna consciousness, may our only desire be to serve, satisfy and please Guru and Gauranga. So with all these in our mind, we can prepare our consciousness for the next 2 days. And then
Mataji, you brought out a very important point of doing seva. So we've been looking at theory, we've been listening. The next 2 days actually gives us an opportunity. I mean, not just limited to 2 days. Of course, we have to do it every day. But at least these 2 days are very special days because the mercy is more. So then the mercy is more than if we do little seva, then it gets magnified or amplified. So that you do small amount, you get 10 times or whatever, So that way it becomes, we'll be able to progress more quickly. So we'll become better recipients of the mercy of the Lord through the parampara. So that's a very important aspect. So I would urge all of us to do some seva, even for half an hour or whatever. I mean, if you do for the whole day, that's wonderful. But then little bit of seva at the local temple where you're connected, or any function that is happening from which is organized by ISKCON, so that you can just do and then do some prasadam distribution or some small seva like that also in the proper mood. That will definitely give a lot of benefit. We see by now, I think we have understood that we will only have to be recipients of the mercy. We are not achievers, we are receivers, we are recipients, So we'll always have to get. So if you have to be a recipient, then you know what to do. We have to serve, we have to do devotional service. And when you have to serve, then we do it in a proper mood after having heard every day the various philosophy. Then it's a time for us to implement those learnings, So all the best for that. Thank you, Mataji, for bringing that up. Hare Krishna. Just wanted to add that. Go ahead. You are concluding wonderfully. Go ahead.
Holiness, Jayapataka Swami Maharaj mentions that, it's the sale period, right? The mercy is ever overflowing on these, especially these 2 days. So as much as we can grab mercy, as much we will advance in devotional service. So it's like a sale period, discount sale in the mall. We all go and, collect maximum goodies with less price, like that. So let us all grab this opportunity. Service opportunities are galore in Prabhupada's International Study for Krishna Consciousness. Everyone has an opportunity to serve according to our propensity. You can make garlands, make boga offering for the Lord, sweep the temple hall, mop the temple hall, whatever is the service. Let's all grab the opportunities and do services and advance in our Krishna consciousness. And please, Srila Prabhupada, and please, Lord Sri Krishna. So thank you very much, dear devotees. We'll meet you all on Monday morning, next 11:30, as we start our next verse of Brahma Samhita. So we wish you all a very, very happy Shri Krishna Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada Vyasa Puja celebrations. Hare Krishna. So meet you all on Monday morning. Hari Bol, Danat Pranams. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari.
Hare Hare Bol. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Happy
Hare
Janmashtami.
Krishna. Happy Janmashtami to all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Danat Pranams.
Hare Krishna. Happy Janmashtami. Thank you.
Haribo.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.